Switching gears a little bit, come to you from Washington. We're going to talk to you about the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the work that's been funded and happening under that. So I am, as Ken mentioned, the Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary for Finance and Budget. I function as a Deputy CFO, also sort of like a lead performance officer for the department. And it's been one of my roles to make sure these funds go to do what they're supposed to do under the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. And before that, I just want to mention, and this is near and dear to me here, because I did have 25 years in the New York City government realm. I see some old friends here. And so really glad to be home and to see you all. So this is just old information, but in case anyone doesn't know, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law was passed in November of 2021. It was the first major, the largest piece of federal funding for transportation in many decades, and in some cases, the first type of funding for many parts of transportation. It wasn't just transportation, though. We've heard a lot about technology and other infrastructure today, and broadband has been a huge deal in this piece of legislation. Also, water pipes and a whole slew of other initiatives. But I'm here to talk about transportation. That said, this bill was really focused on delivering on four key parts of the administration's goals: creating good middle-class union jobs, supporting the disadvantaged and underserved communities, advancing climate resilience and sustainability, and finally, investing in American manufacturers. So for DOT, this bill had $660 billion of funding authorized for a whole slew of transportation investment types. The biggest one being federal highways, which, as you see the numbers here, $365 billion. We'll talk a little bit about some of the specifics on this in a minute, but it really everything from highways, rail, airports, buses, and ports, and so on. So one thing that was very exciting about this bill was the new types of programs. There, of course, those of you, a lot of you know, there's always been traditional funding schemes for federal highways and FTA formula pots that go to the states or the various MPOs. But this piece of legislation brought a whole slew of new programs that were competitive in nature for cities, municipalities, counties, states even to compete for. So, and this was really intended to deliver on very specific goals for this bill. Safe Streets for All is one that we're very proud of and has really been delivering a lot of safer streets for the nation. I see a colleague from New York City DOT, and a lot of what happened here in New York City for the Vision Zero initiative is now happening across the country in delivering funding to achieve re-engineering of streets to make them safer for pedestrians, cyclists, and motorists. So that's a huge one that we have been able to move funding out on. But you'll see the whole list here. And by the way, I know this is small font for some of you, but I think Ken has indicated that this deck will be available for folks to see in the future. A lot of this funding that you see here, I'm happy to tell you the funds have gone out in a big way. And so that's what we'll be discussing a little bit here. Another pot of funds, though, that we don't want folks to forget, it came under the Inflation Reduction Act, which was the other big piece of legislation that provided funds for climate initiatives, among other things, in the nation. And DOT benefited from not a small amount of funds, small relative compared to the bill, but we did get specific funding for aviation and the highway climate initiatives. And one that we're very proud of, it supplemented the funding that we already had under the BIL for neighborhoods to make them more sustainable. So what progress have we done? I mean, this has been more than 3 years, right? So hopefully we have something to show for it. And I'm happy to tell you we do. One is that, and we've been doing some publicity over this last few weeks and months, so you may have seen some of this. But in case you haven't, here, let me make sure you know, there's already $570 billion of BIL funds that have been announced for over 66,000 projects across all 50 states. So that's not a small number. We can compare that to historic figures, and this is a pretty impressive figure here. Just at DOT, and we're very transparent with this. You can go on our website and see for yourself. We're a little weedy in the budget world. We like to talk about obligation and outlays and show the world how we're doing with that. So we have obligated, and folks probably know what that means, but that's a critical step in getting these funds out and locking those funds in for these projects to proceed. We've already obligated over 70% of the funds that were available up to this point. And so we're very proud of that. A lot of projects moving forward, some of which I'll be speaking on in a second. And then the outlay number, which is what we've actually claimed and spent and reimbursed through the claims that our grantees submit, over 33% already of those funds have already been delivered to the contractors, well, at least to the grantees to pay the contractors. So this is a huge undertaking, and 3 years in, we're very glad to see these funds move forward. And we update this every 2 weeks, so this transparency is there for folks to keep following. And if you've never heard of USA Spending, this is a lovely site. I didn't know it, unfortunately. I'm ashamed to say before I got to the federal government, but it's really great. You can pull up any part of the country in the map and see how much funds have gone there. So we have a link in here for that as well. Our secretary and our leadership have been out across the country on construction tours, really a lot of groundbreakings, ribbon cuttings, and the like. You see some photos here from this year, really touting $12 billion in discretionary grant funding that have gone to key programs. So let me take you through a few of those. First, starting with bridges, which has been, I think, near dear to me, having been a CFO for a major bridge organization, New York City DOT. But there was a crisis, if you all remember, bridges collapsing, which is not a good thing, obviously. And so a lot of attention went to this in the BIL, and there's already now 11,400 plus projects that are either reconstructing, modernizing, repairing bridges across the country right now. And so this is a major achievement that we're very glad about. This was made possible through a slew of different programs. I mean, there was a new major bridge investment program that was created or expanded in the BIL, supplementing the existing bridge formula program. But then adding to that, these other competitive programs that cities were able to really put their hats in for, not just cities and counties, I'll say, one being the infra program and then what we call the mega program. So, and this was a graphic that we put in our press release just a few days ago that shows you some of the major bridges that are considered economically significant, although that's a little insulting to the rest of the bridges. But I will say that these are some big major bridges across the country that are now happily moving forward with some very critical funds, and some of them in the Northeast, which I know we're here to focus on. Roadways, similarly, in New York City here, we're grateful to have. We've heard some of our friends at DDC and our good friend Eric McFarland and the team representing on all the great work they're doing to advance the street network, the street reconstruction, and other critical infrastructure in the city. This is something that nationwide there really needed to be more investment for. And New York City does a good job of supplementing its own funds for this, which has the resources to do that. Not so true across the country. And so there's a lot of substantial funds now going across the country. This was an increase in the formula pots. So you see now a lot of new monies going to all over the country, and 196,000 miles of roadway are now being repaired or improved from coast to coast. We did the math on this, and this comes out to crossing the U.S. 65 times, in case anyone is interested in that. Featuring a project in New Jersey. I'm trying to feature one of the Northeast states in each of these slides. So any friends from New Jersey, we have some great projects happening in all the states, but definitely a very important one in South Jersey that is benefiting from the infra grants and also the emergency relief funds post hurricanes. Safety being our North Star, as we like to say at USDOT, we have 6 strategic goals, but safety is number one. The tragedy of over 40,000 plus fatalities on roadways across the country and how that was actually increasing when we started in this administration was something that you can just imagine was top of mind for the leadership. We are happy to report to you that, as we announced a month ago or so in this press release, we've had 9 quarters now in a row of traffic fatalities coming down. And this is, going against a trend that had been in place post-COVID nationwide. This involves a number of things, but changing the streets, making them safer is a big part of it. 1,600 communities across the country now have been funded to improve their roadway safety for drivers and cyclists and pedestrians. This is, again, I mentioned the Safe Streets for All grant program, but we know there's a lot of formula pots as well, the Highway Safety Improvement Program that also goes to do this nationwide. So we're very happy to see the number come down. We won't be truly happy until number 0, but this is a good, a major step in the good direction. Our ports, if folks remember the horror of seeing these ships lined up in the ports, either in Long Beach, California, or elsewhere 4 years ago, where our ports really were not built to bring in supplies in an effective way, particularly in times of crisis. And a lot of funding now and a lot of effort has gone, collaboration with the private sector and the port industries to fix that problem. I'm happy to tell you on the DOT side, we have the Maritime Administration that administers our PDIP grant program, which has now sent out a whole slew of funds, most recently $580 million announced just a short while ago, a month ago, for some critical projects. The big one in Rhode Island was in that package recently. But there are now over 580 port and waterway projects that have been announced either by us or our partners at the Army Corps of Engineers to really improve and sustain our supply chain. Transit, we don't want to leave our friends in transit out. I see our dignitaries in the transit world in the room here. And I will tell you that I'm very proud that we have 4,600 buses funded now across the country for mostly low and no emission buses, which is something that a lot of bus authorities were not really in a place to buy in the past, just given constraints and funding and whatnot. So we, under this BIL, expanded and really created a lot of opportunities for low emission and no emission buses with money attached. And really, you now see those types of buses being purchased across the country. And as we're showing here, 4,600 is our number at the moment. This has really been something that it really proves the point that funding it works as an incentive. So really happy to see that our emissions will be improving over time with this program. The airports have been a huge piece of this. We have 1,500 airports that are modernizing their terminals or expanding their operations or improving their runways with BIL funds right here today. And for those, many of you must know, but might know, but traditionally funds had typically gone towards, sort of the air traffic control towers or back of the house infrastructure. This is now really front and center in improving terminals and doing a lot more at the airports than you had traditionally seen in the past. And this is something that we were seeing in 2 airports in our northeastern states. Buffalo just got a huge grant for their airport, and Boston Logan as well. And rail, which we were glad to hear our friends from Amtrak this morning with their excellent talk. One of the major hallmarks of the BIL is to expand the rail network for the nation. And happy to tell you that's been happening. We have 320 rail projects nationwide that have been announced. This includes everything from basic infrastructure to do the state of good repair, but really expanding and planning for some long dreamed of routes that maybe hadn't really been considered for a while. And then very proudly paying for the first truly high-speed rail corridor in the nation's history out in the West, which is currently in construction and planned to be completed by 2028 in time for the Olympics in Los Angeles. So This is huge. This marks the most significant investment in American rail infrastructure in 50 years. And it's a whole slew of different programs that the FRA administers for this. But one that we'll call out is the Consolidated Rail Infrastructure and Safety Improvements Program, which has announced projects in every region of the country. Focusing here on the Northeast, which I think we heard a lot about from Amtrak this morning, but just a few weeks ago, we announced another $1.5 billion for the Northeast Corridor. I'm very glad to do that. This supplements funds that we had already allocated, and there's a host builds on more than $16.4 billion that had already been announced for the Northeast Corridor. The Gateway Hudson Tunnel obviously being the big item there, but a number of other projects, as you all well know, with the Susquehanna River Bridge in Maryland and New York Penn Station access. And I will say, because I still am a DC resident, for some time, we also pay for the Long Bridge, which we're very happy about, which is at the southern tip there in DC, a critical connection to Virginia. So all this said, we have been busy at work, as you can see. We're very excited to see these investments play out for decades to come and really serve the public for even longer. And, we will be putting out a new accomplishments report next month as the current administration's time ends. You'll see that soon on our website. And really, highlighting, I mentioned a lot of the grants, which is great and really what I've been focusing on, but there's really just a lot more in the realm across all 6 strategic goals. I mentioned our North Star being safety, but obviously the rest of them: climate and sustainability, equity, economic growth, and global competitiveness. Organizational excellence is one of our 6 goals as well, building a strong team within DOT to deliver for the American public. And finally, transformation, which is really looking for all those innovations that are critical for the future transportation, whether it would be in automation, AI, advanced mobility for air, or these other really exciting things of the future. So with that, I know we're at the end of our time, but thank you very much for having me. And if you have any questions, I'll be out in the foyer. Thanks.